So, Andor will be releasing on the 21st of September, and with that date approaching, the hype is building, which got me thinking about Rogue One and its cast of characters. Hello and welcome back to Vault Holocron. I'm Jonathan, and today we will be discussing the Rogue One crew in preparation for Andor. So first, let's start with the guy responsible for this video, Cassian Andor. Cassian Andor started life on the Outer Rim planet of Thest, and it wasn't long before he started seeing battle. Andor joined an insurrectionist cell, a cell rebelling against the Republic in the Clone Wars, and he saw his first combat at only 6 years old as a child soldier throwing rocks and bottles at Republic troops. His childhood was a difficult one, as not only was he working for the insurrectionist cell, but he also lost his mother at a young age, and his father who died at a protest against the expansion of Republic militarism. After the Clone Wars, Andor joined multiple anarchist groups who stood against the Empire, and eventually found his way to the Rebel Alliance. Under the Rebel Alliance, he worked as an intelligence agent, going undercover in many roles, under many names. Later, he moved into a new role, that of a recruiter, under the title Fulcrum. If you've seen Rebels, you may recognise this title, as the name Ahsoka went under, serving as an informant to the Rebels. After she was thought to be dead, many Rebels took up the name, including Cassian Andor, although not much is known about his time as Fulcrum. At some point after this, he went on a mission to Wekako to gather some Imperial protocols. He went here alongside the twins, Chirrut and Imwe, in the hopes to gather the protocols from an abandoned Imperial cruiser. However, there was far greater Imperial presence on the planet than expected, causing complications. Cassian didn't turn back though, getting to the cruiser through a sewage pipe. The plan still didn't go smoothly though, with someone spotting them entering the sewers, leading Cassian to search for another exit. In this search, he set off an alarm, bringing things from bad to worse. Cassian still had a plan though. He attracted the attention of K2 Erso, a KX series droid, through faking a surrender. K2 Erso then pinned him down, but Chirrut and Imwe came to the rescue, removing a lot of K2 Erso's memory. This meant that Andor could use K2 Erso to help the team escape. Despite issues with K2 Erso trying to switch back to his baseline programming, the group eventually made it back to the ship, only to find it heavily guarded. This is where the twins ran off, telling Andor that K2 Erso would have the protocols he needed. This distracted a few of the stormtroopers. Next, Cassian's ship blew up, leading Cassian to have to find a new ship. He then finished removing K2 Erso's memory, and together with his new droid friend escaped the planet on a stolen ship. After this, he then went to get the security protocols out of K2 Erso. At some point after meeting K2 Erso, Cassian and K2 Erso went on a mission to raid an Imperial freighter, pretending to be smugglers to not get caught. However, when on the ship, they found 3 young Wookiees, as well as the cargo they were looking for. Andor decided to take the Wookiees instead of the cargo, and dropped them off on the moon of Chirrut with K2 Erso while he continued with the raid. And that's it for the stuff we know about Cassian from before Rogue One. But of course the Andor show will add more to this history of the character. Next up, I'm covering Cassian's trusty sidekick, K2 Erso. So I explored a bit of K2 Erso's story when discussing Cassian, but there is a story of note that happened at some point before Rogue One, which didn't feature Cassian. K2 Erso helped a group of rebels disguised as stormtroopers on a mission to Mustafar, in search of a powerful weapon. The rebels then went on a dangerous mission and found the weapon, which was revealed to be a proto-saber, but they needed help escaping. This is where K2 Erso came in, rescuing the rebels. After this, the events of Rogue One occurred. Now I'm covering Jyn Erso. Jyn Erso was born on the Outer Rim planet of Vault, to Galen and Lyra Erso, and her childhood was quite hectic. Jyn was actually born in a separatist prison, as her father was arrested by the Confederacy of Independent Systems for not sharing his knowledge of kyber crystals. which left Jyn in the care of her mother and the caretakers at the prison. Jyn and her family were aided by the Republic after a while though, when Lieutenant Commander Alton Krennic brought the family to Coruscant. The family stayed here for a while, and then moved to Lokori, where Jyn Erso had found a job working on a renewable energy project. However, this planet ended up being attacked by the Separatists in 19 BBY, which included an assault on Galen's place of work. Jyn Erso's parents put her in a carrier and fled the facility, but they still ended up being surrounded by droids. Just as all seemed hopeless, the droids deactivated, and the Ersos had just witnessed the end of the Clone Wars. After this incident, the family moved back to Coruscant, where Jyn Erso now worked for the Empire, working on a Kyber Crystal sustainable energy project, which unknown to him was actually a superweapon development program, which was being used for the Empire's plans of making the Death Star. In this time, Jyn's parents became more distant to each other, due to disagreements around Project Celestial Power, which Galen was working on. But after a while the pair came together, and figured out that the supposed sustainable energy project Galen was working on for the Empire was actually a weapon. This led to the family deciding to leave Coruscant and escape the Empire. Initially they planned for smuggler Has Obbit to get them off of Coruscant, but after Obbit was caught by Krennic, they were taken by Saw Gerrera, who dropped the family off on La Mu, and gave them a comm card which could be used to contact him. 4 years later, when Jyn was only 8 years old, the Ersos were visited by Krennic, who captured Galen and killed Lyra, as seen in the opening of Rogue One. Jyn was then rescued by Saw Gerrera, who raised her as his daughter. This was important, as if the news that she was Jyn Erso's daughter got out, she could be in danger. While with Saw, Jyn was trained to use a blaster, a truncheon, and a code replicator, which could be used to forge Imperial clearance codes. She was also trained in hand-to-hand combat, and she also did multiple small jobs for the partisans in this time. Later, when she was 11, she joined Saw in a meeting with Enfys Nest, and while here she bonded with Enfys Nest, who told her that others would underestimate her due to her age, and that she should make them regret it. After a while, Jyn ended up taking part in partisan missions. Her first mission involved guarding the airlock while the partisans boarded an Imperial ship. While guarding the airlock, she was approached by an Imperial, who she threatened but was reluctant to shoot. This meant that another partisan had to step in and save her. Jyn was very ashamed of herself, and Saw was very disappointed. After this, she went on multiple more missions, until the age of 16, when she joined Saw on a mission to Tamsai Prime, which would end up being her last mission with the partisans. While here, the group was betrayed by Talent, who suspected Jyn's actual identity. Saw and Jyn were then attacked by the Empire, but they managed to fight their way out. Saw then ordered Jyn to hide in an old shell turret until daylight, which she did, expecting the partisans to come back, but they never did. Saw had abandoned her because he believed that with her identity now being known, she'd be safer away from him. This incident destroyed Jyn's trust and left her feeling angry about Saw and Jyn Erso for both leaving her. Jyn then escaped the planet with the help of a pilot. The pair then went to another planet to destroy the ship they were on, and Jyn was left alone again. Jyn Erso then chose to go by the name Jyn Dawn. Luckily, she managed to get a ride off-world on a freighter operated by Akshaya Ponta, in exchange for repairing their droid. On the journey, Jyn helped Ponta escape an Imperial ship, and so Ponta offered Jyn to live with her and her family for a while. Jyn agreed and admitted that she didn't actually know how to fix the droid. Jyn then lived with the Ponta family for some time, and Jyn grew close to Akshaya's son, Hadar. At one point, Hadar told Jyn that he was planning on joining a resistance group, but after Jyn said she wouldn't go with him, he chose to stay, and the pair then confessed their love to each other. At one point after this, the couple went to a restaurant together, but at this restaurant, Jyn came face to face with partisan Zosad Hozem, who recognized her. The two of them then got into a fight, and Jyn beat Hozem, telling him to leave her alone. After this, she then told Hadar of some of her past, warning him about working with the partisans, something which he was considering. Things only got worse from here though, as Jyn and Hadar went home to Akshaya, informing them that the Empire was now starting to crack down on the planet. Due to this, the family eventually decided they would move to the 5-point system to start a new life. However, the night before they planned to leave, stormtroopers busted into their home, believing Jyn to be a rebel who'd worked with the partisans on Tamzai Prime, where she was abandoned. The family managed to escape, but Jyn got separated from Hadar and Akshaya. While separated, Hadar and Akshaya took the freighter off-world, while Jyn took the planet hopper. Sadly, the freighter was destroyed by the Empire, killing Hadar and Akshaya, leaving Jyn alone again. After this, Jyn spent most of her time alone, committing crimes and moving throughout the galaxy. In this time, she used many aliases, and was arrested multiple times, but she always escaped. At one point, she went after a dictator, but this idea went wrong, and she ended up being dragged through the streets and locked in holdings where stormtroopers attacked her. At another point, Jyn was visiting Garel City when she noticed some stormtroopers taking a pet Tuka cat from a young girl, and so Jyn fought off the stormtroopers and gave the pet back to the girl, who thanked Jyn for what she had done. Jyn Erso was wanted by the Empire for a lot of crimes, and she was eventually caught, although they had arrested her under the name Lyanna Halleck, her current alias. This arrest left her in a bad spot as she was assigned to a labour camp, which had a maximum 5 years life expectancy, with no means of escape. On top of this, her cellmate was planning on killing her next time they worked in the same work shift. Luckily, the rebellion stepped in her 6th month as an inmate to rescue her, and this is where the Rogue One film began. Next, I'm looking at Chirrut Imwe and Baze Malbus, who I will be covering together as they were with each other often. Chirrut and Baze grew up together on the desert moon of Jeddah, where they eventually joined the Guardians of the Whills, a religious order which believed in spirituality and the Force. However, Baze left the order after the Empire occupied the holy city of New Jeddah, which made him more cynical and less faithful. Chirrut remained in the order though, and the pair were still friends. At one point in Chirrut's time as a Guardian of the Whills, Chirrut confronted Doc Ondar and Honda Anaka, who were trying to steal a Kyber crystal statue from the Temple of Kyber. Chirrut ended up letting the thieves go with the statue though, after Doc Ondar told him that he wished to take the statue as it was similar to that which his parents owned before they tragically died, as he believed it could be a clue to solving their murders. Later, Chirrut and Baze were approached by Bisa Fortuna, a character we've actually made a video on this channel, who invited the duo to join the partisans. Chirrut and Baze agreed to this under the condition that the orphanage their friends ran would be given all the supplies they needed. As part of the partisans though, Chirrut was undermined, with the partisans leaving him out of many missions. Over time, the partisans' attacks on the Empire became more frequent, and so Jeddah was attacked more in response, and there were more and more orphans. This reached a point where Chirrut and Baze came to the conclusion that the orphans would be better off-world, and so they devised a plan with the partisans. This plan involved stealing an Imperial Sentinel ship to fly the orphans away from Jeddah, but on the day there was a complication. Bisa Fortuna and 2 other partisans had decided to instead steal the ship so it could be driven into the Star Destroyer over Jeddah and hopefully destroy it. Chirrut and Baze managed to stop them though, by convincing them that it wouldn't look good on Saw Gerrera if word got out that the partisans had turned away orphans. Due to this incident, Chirrut and Baze left the partisans, now viewing the group very negatively. This is all we know of the duo before Rogue One for now. Finally, I'm looking at Bodhi Rook. Bodhi Rook was born on Jeddah, where he lived with his mother. While here, he had 2 run-ins with the law, one for illegal gambling, and one for unsafe operation of an airspeeder. As he entered adulthood, Bodhi joined the Empire, with dreams of becoming a starfighter pilot, and so he was sent to the Terrabe Sector Service Academy, where he underwent flight training for 2 years. However, he scored poorly in Imperial tests, and so he didn't qualify for the Starfighter program. 2 years later, he gained the rank of Ensign, working on starships, and he was eventually given the opportunity to work on cargo shuttles for the transport of Imperial documents and artifacts. At one point, Bodhi met Jyn Erso, who managed to convince him to defect from the Empire and deliver a message to Saw Gerrera. This defection caused the Empire to put a 75,000 credit bounty for his capture, but as seen in Rogue One, Bodhi managed to get to Saw Gerrera before being captured. Anyway, that's all for Bodhi's story before Rogue One so far, and this marks the end of this video. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this dive into the Rogue One crew, and we hope to see you later at Vault Holocron.